Chapter 11 of A Diamond in the Rough by a Self-Made Man. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 11, in which Jake, Wyse, and Gummett get away with a swag. For 2 hours Fred King lay insensible on the floor of the old mill. The rain clouds had passed away, and the moon was shining like a big cheese in the sky. The wind had fined down to a soft zephyr, which kissed without disturbing the glistening raindrops hanging pendant from the trees and shrubbery. Then it was that the boy began to move upon the hard planks, and presently he sat up with an indefinite feeling of someone awakening from a dream. For the second time within a few hours he asked himself where was he, and it was several minutes before recollection asserted itself and the events of the night rushed upon his mind. "By George!" he ejaculated. "I remember now. I started to come downstairs after those rascals, and then something happened. What was it?" He staggered to his feet and felt his head. The concussion had reopened the pistol-shot wound at the time, but that had dried again after another flow of blood. "I'm up against it tonight for fair," he muttered. Then he observed the ruins of the stairway which lay all about him, for now that the moon shone objects could be clearly distinguished in the room, and the cause of his mishap was plain. "I certainly had a nasty fall. It's lucky I didn't break my neck. It's better to have been born lucky than rich." He felt kind of shaky on his legs, but the recollection of the contemplated burglary at the office of the Black Diamond Colliery acted as a spur to his benumbed energies. "Good gracious! I wonder how long I was unconscious." This was a poser. Walking outside, he looked up at the moon as if he thought he could tell the hour by its position in the sky, but he couldn't. "Those fellows have a big start on me, I'm afraid. Well, I'll hurry along to Constable Jinks. I don't believe those rascals will be able to open that safe very quick. It'll be hard luck if we don't catch them in the act." It took 30 minutes for Fred to reach Constable Jinks's cottage, and nearly 10 more before he managed to arouse the inmates. "What's the matter?" asked the voice of Mrs. Jinks as she poked her night-capped head out of an upper window. "I want to see Mr. Jinks." "He's asleep. Do you know what hour it is, young man?" she said with some asperity. "About 12 o'clock, isn't it?" asked Fred anxiously. 12 o'clock!" exclaimed the good lady sarcastically. "Nearer 3. "What?" gasped the boy. "So late as that?" "Late? Early in the morning, you mean?" "Good gracious, I'm afraid I'm too late, then." "Too late? What do you mean?" "I mean there's a plot under way to break into the office of the Black Diamond Colliery and open the safe for the money that's known to be in there. I wish you'd tell Mr. Jinks about it, and say I overheard the scheme, and he ought to get up and come with me to the superintendent's house." With an exclamation, Mrs. Jinks had vanished, and presently was replaced by the rubicund visage of the constable himself. "What's this about a robbery at the Black Diamond office?" he asked sleepily. "Please dress yourself as quickly as possible. I'll tell you all about it as we go along." But, sputtered the constable, who didn't relish the idea of leaving his warm bed at that hour. "There isn't a moment to be lost if we're going to catch the thieves," cried Fred impatiently. Well, I'll be down in a moment," the officer said testily as he closed the window with a bang. Fred thought Mr. Jinks took a long time to get into his clothes, and he was beginning to feel uneasy over the outcome of the affair when Jinks appeared with his coat on his arm. "Now let me hear all about it," he said after he recognized his early caller. Fred told his story, which duly astonished the guardian of the mining village, and they walked rapidly toward the superintendent's cottage. It didn't take 1/3 as long to arouse Mr. Maxwell and bring him outside fully prepared for business as it had been the constable. He was a man of action, and his active mind grasped the meaning of Fred's words in a twinkling. "We must arouse a new cracker boss on our way, and 1 or 2 others. These rascals won't be captured without a struggle, I dare say. I am hardly surprised to learn that Jake Wyse is mixed up in this. His record is none too good. It's pretty certain that it was he and Gummett who set fire to Mr. Marsh's cottage. If we only could have brought it home to them, we could have put both of them behind the bars, where they evidently belong. I hope we'll nail them now. It'll be 10 years at least for the scoundrels." By this time they were pounding on the door of the cottage where lived the new foreman of the screen room, and 5 minutes sufficed to get him outside. Mr. Maxwell then roused a couple of the yardmen. The superintendent and the constable were provided with their revolvers. The others, including Fred, were expected to rely on nature's weapons, their fists. As they hurriedly drew near to the Black Diamond Colliery buildings, they saw a light shining from one of the office windows. "I guess we're in time," cried Fred joyfully, for up to that moment his mind had been filled with doubts as to whether they would be in time to head off the ruffians. The superintendent halted his little band and explained the tactics he intended to put into practice. Then they advanced again with due caution. Drawing close to the office window, Mr. Maxwell and Mr. Jinks peered through the glass. The stout safe was in full view, with a glass jet burning dimly above it, as was the usual custom. But its ponderous door had been blown open by a charge of dynamite, and the carpeted floor in front was littered with papers and miscellaneous documents discarded by the thieves as of no value to them. There was no sign of the rascals who had wrought the damage. "We're too late!" exclaimed the superintendent in a voice of dismayed concern. "The villains have succeeded in getting away with their booty. There was over $20,000 in that safe." While the others started to enter the office, Fred made a break for the rear of the building. Why he did so he couldn't have explained even to his own satisfaction. It was an impulse of the moment that he acted upon. As he came around the other side of the office, he almost ran into a man's arms. It was Gummett, who uttered a curse and started to run. Fred recognized him and was on his heels like a flash. "Stop, you thief!" he cried shrilly. Gummett, seeing he was at a disadvantage, dashed his canvas bag of tools full in the boy's face. Fred was staggered and went down on his hands and knees. As he staggered to his feet, he saw both Gummett and Jake Wyse vanishing around the corner of an outbuilding. Shouting loudly to alarm the rest of the party, Fred started in full chase after the rascals. End of chapter 11.